Let's sit tall. Close the eyes. And just take this moment to connect with yourself. You could put your right hand on your heart, left hand on your belly. And through the surface of the palms of the hands, feel the vibrant energy of your own being. Body, mind, and spirit. What you feel, tactile sensation, the physical body. What you feel more subtly, the energetic, the mind, the messages that run from the mind to the body and from the body to the mind. And then what lies beyond both those things is the deep, deep inner peace that is not dependent upon external circumstances, mental, emotional circumstances, physical circumstances. The deep inner peace that is always there, which is spirit. And so just taking the next 2 or 3 breaths and to see if you can connect with all 3. Body, mind, spirit. And on your next exhale, draw the hands together in front of the heart. We'll lift our voices in one Om and the invocation mantras. If you know them, please join. Taking a breath in. Om. Shri Guru Bhyo Namaha. Hari Om. Ganana Antva Ganapati Gum Havamahe Kavin Kavinam Upamashravastamam Jestarajam Brahmanan Brahmanaspata Anaf Shrinvanu Tibsidha Sadhanam Mahaganapataye Namaha Prano Devi Saraswati Vaje Bhirvajini Vati Dhinama Vitriyavatu Ano Divo Brahataf Parvatada Saraswati Ajata Gantu Yagnyam Havan Devi Jujushana Gritachi Shagmam Novacha Mushati Shrinotu Vagdevyai Namaha. And gently releasing the hands down, fluttering the eyes open. So I thought today we would talk a little bit about the body, mind, spirit complex, and about what the connections and the obstacles to connection are between those layers of being. And so, some of it is pretty obvious, and some of it is not. And usually those are the same things. Some of those things are very obvious, and some are very much not. Because everything is in layers, Everything is in degrees of separation, degrees of relationship. And so when we talk about the physical body, how many of you feel that you're really super aware of your physical body? Like truly aware of your physical body? No? Good. I'm glad at least one person is in this room. But the reality is that our awareness of the physical body can be so much more profound than what it is, even if we feel that we have that awareness with us presently. There's always a deeper level of awareness that we can come to physically. And the deepest level of awareness that we can come to is the understanding that pain and discomfort are not something that we need to react to. Pain and discomfort are not things we need to react to. What they necessitate from us is response. So pain, the response necessitated to pain is the appropriate response. Need medical care, get medical care. Need a Band-Aid, get a Band-Aid. Need to hold yourself and cry a little bit because, it's a painful situation physically, then do it. You don't need to react. What you need to do is respond. And then for discomfort, we don't need to react. And the typical response to discomfort is patience. People are oftentimes surprised to hear that. Well, don't you want to move away from discomfort? It's like, no, not usually. Because discomfort is actually more of a mental issue that becomes a physical issue because of the messaging that the mind is sending to the body. The mind says, oh, hold on, and so all of a sudden, there goes the body holding on. Let go, and all of a sudden, there goes the body letting go. So the discomfort part of it is something that we can really, really sink our teeth into and pay attention to and learn how to become responsive to. And the responsiveness on that side is the cultivation of contentment within ourselves, the ability to sit with what is discomforting, uncomfortable, and to learn how to accept it for what it is, mostly a mental irritation. So we learn how to respond to pain in the physical body by providing ourselves with what is necessary in order to address the pain. And we learn how to exist in harmony with discomfort by learning that discomfort is actually an idea in our mind much of the time. It's an opinion. How many of you in that frog posture who were in class before had a mental opinion about that posture? Yes, you did. And did that mental opinion cause you some discomfort? Yeah, of course it did. Irritation, right? Irritation, and the irritation then caused you to clench the buttocks or squeeze the thighs or make fists or make funny faces or bite down on your jaw, right? So imagine now, if you just took that posture and you said, I understand that I have an opinion about this, but I'm not going to react to the opinion. Instead, I'm going to respond to the posture. What is this posture asking of me? How do I cultivate a safe environment for myself as much as I can in an unpredictable world, and give myself what is needed in order to cultivate contentment? And so what would that be? Maybe a prop, right? So hence the prop talk in class, right? So these things, they're very different from one another, aren't they? And yet, physically speaking, we bulk them together. We think that what is discomforting is painful and what is painful is uncomfortable. We don't realize that these are two different things, actually. Two very different things. Just like in the emotional state of our being, we don't understand that satisfaction and happiness are two different things. We don't understand that anger and depression are two different things. That grief and guilt are two different things. Instead, we bulk them all into one. And we call ourselves, I'm an angry person, I'm a happy person. And we think that we have to be pigeonholed into one particular emotion. When the reality is that if you sat down with a checklist of emotions that had a little description next to them, and then asked, how many of these do you experience in a given day? You'd probably check every box. So how do you cultivate greater resiliency within yourself? Is it by saying to yourself, I'm just an angry person? Or is it by asking yourself, what am I feeling right now? Let me sit down and actually contemplate this. What is really going on with me? And then addressing it through responsiveness, rather than cultivating the reaction of, well, I'm just an angry person. I'm just a depressed person. I'm just a grievous person. I'm just a this person. I'm just a that person. I'm just a happy person. And I'm thrilled for anybody who thinks that they're just a happy person because, hey, the world needs more of that, right? But the reality is they're not just a happy person. because they have moments too of great depression and great anger and all the other smorgasbord of emotions that we go through. And each and every one of us, as we're going through those emotions, each of those emotions, tongue-tied, each of those emotions require a physical reaction. Now, how many of you knew that? Each and every single one of your emotions requires from you a physical reaction. So hence the stress you carry in your body, the tension you carry in your body, all of it. The physical is so tied in with the emotional. It's so tied in with the mental. And that tie is oftentimes an obstacle to a true connection between the body and the mind. Because the mind thinks what it wants. Doesn't matter if it's true or not. Doesn't matter if it's accurate or not. The mind goes off on its wild stories, you know. You ever have something happen to you, like someone stole your parking spot, right? And then later that day, you know, like say it happens at like 8 a.m. in the morning on your way to work, right? You're in a rush to get to work and you stop at your favorite coffee shop to grab a real quick coffee and you've got it timed just right. And then somebody pulls into the parking spot. The only one that happens to be there, right? Now you got to look for a parking spot and you're teetering between, do I forget the coffee and be, you know, on time for work, or do I get the coffee, be late for work, and then what do I tell my boss? Well, there was a red light, there was an accident, I was caught up in this, caught up in that. And now that's at 8 a.m. At 5 p.m., that story is still going on in your mind. Only now the details are slightly different, you know, like there's a justification that happens. The mind just goes off on its tangents, trying to make the story something that it wasn't. And this is what we have to deal with in the relationship between the body and the mind, is that the mind is always contorting things, making them more or less than what they actually are. So primary obstacle is that we don't know our mind. And we actually also don't know our body. We know what we think of our body. How many of you have ever had a moment of body dysmorphia in your life? Every hand in the room. 2, right? Yeah. Because we do. Now, why do we experience body dysmorphia? And what does that do to reinforce the tendency of the mind to go off on wild tangents? Well, we experience body dysmorphia because culturally speaking, and pretty much no matter what culture we're talking about, there's expectation of what a person is supposed to look like, supposed to be like. And we take that into the heart of our own self, and we allow it to be our guidepost. Like, can you imagine that? How many of you would like for God to be your guidepost? Yay, Hare Krishna. Right? And yet, what we end up choosing, and usually unbeknownst to us, is the image someone else projects upon us to be our guidepost. Yeah. And if that's what we do, then how on earth do we know our body? We don't. What we know is what we are lacking in comparison to what someone else tells us we should have. Isn't that irritating? Doesn't it make you just want to correct that situation right now? Absolutely. So if you want to correct that situation right now and remove that obstacle, what you need to do is stop listening to other people. Stop looking at the billboards. You know, back in the day, I guess it was like the 1970s when it first started happening, they used to target most advertising to women, because they knew that the women were the householders, the house caregivers. They bought the groceries, they bought the clothes, they bought the cleaning detergent, they bought everything. So most advertising was oriented toward women. And do you remember those like 1960s, 1970s commercials, right? With like the woman with the high heels and what was it? She can go to work and bring home the bacon too. Yeah. Oh. Or she can't go gray. She won't be sexy anymore, right? So Clairol, for everybody, right? Or at least for all women. All these different commercials, all these different advertised, oriented toward women, fitting into a perception that these mass consumer organizations put out on us. Oh, it used to get me so riled. Oh, I was much less calm back in those days. Although some people would say, you're not that much calmer, Swamini. I was like, okay, fine. And something really crazy kind of happened in, let's just say, the late 70s. The first commercial came out for, what's the name of that product? It was for men with gray hair.
Yeah, I think it's
Grecian formula. Yes. And let me tell you, I would be very reactionary to these advertising campaigns surrounding women. But the first time that I saw that commercial, I blew a gasket. That they had this guy on there who was a fine-looking guy, like whatever. But he's got a little gray, and now all of a sudden he's not good enough. And I'm stomping my feet, walking around, talking to my friends, actually screaming at them, saying, how dare they do that to men now too? Do they not contort our perception of ourselves enough that now they have to cultivate insecurity in men as well, all for the sake of a buck? Right? So it used to be very much largely that body dysmorphia was a female issue. Now it's both. It's men and women. It's everybody. And it's really unfortunate. And that is the primary obstacle that lies between you and your body. Is the image that society and all of its aspects has given you of what you should be. So if you want to correct that obstacle, delete it, resolve it, then you have to stop listening. You have to come to the realization of you are exactly fine, exactly as you are, and whatever work there is that has to be done is your work and your work alone. And nobody else can really tell you what that work is. Only you know. You can talk to people for guidance if they're trustworthy people, sure. But don't go to your yes friend, And don't go to your partner because they're a yes friend. You say, oh, honey, please be honest with me. What do you think I should work on? You know what they're going to say. Oh, honey, you don't have to work on anything at all. You're great just the way you are. And your ego's going to be so happy, If your partner ever said to you, I really think that of everything that you need to work on, first of all, the hair on the back of the neck goes up on that word, everything. It's like, this is the one thing that would probably benefit you. And you'll go around for years, slamming the door when you leave the room and all other kinds of retaliatory behaviors because he told you what you asked for. She told you what you asked for, right? So be mindful about who you ask for guidance in that regard. Don't make it the yes people in your life. Make it the people who are going to be compassionately honest with you. Not the people who are going to point out the flaws that they think you have. So there's a big difference there, right? There's a difference between looking at somebody and passing a judgment on that person versus looking at an individual who has asked you to be observant and to say to them, there's a lot of things that you really do to support yourself beautifully, but there are also some places where you could do a little bit more to support yourself. And these might be a couple of those places versus this is what you do wrong, Because do you do anything wrong, really? No. There's not really a wrong or a right. There's only a what is good for you, healthy for you, supportive for yourself, and what isn't. So for that, you need to get in touch with your own self. You need to get in touch with your own self. So that bridge between the body and the mind, it has a lot to do with how the mind is cultivated, how the mind is trained, how we train our mind. Now, if you want to train the mind to continually send messages to the body that cause the body to constrict, to recoil in fear or anger, then keep watching violent movies. Keep listening to pornographic music, Keep looking at the billboard, wishing that you had that body, that hair, that look, that whatever it is that they faked up there with a good paintbrush, Keep looking at those things. You will never condition the mind. in a positive light. It will not become healthy. It's only when you cease that behavior in favor of another behavior. Yeah. So stop watching CSI. Yeah. And start reading the Bhagavad Gita. Stop listening to the latest. I just rewatched an interview with Prince. Oh, I love Prince. Hopefully everybody in here knows who Prince was, right? Yeah, okay. Everybody for all of time should know who Prince was. Goodness gracious. But I just rewatched this interview with him. And the reporter said to him, how does it make you feel when people ask you to listen to some of your explicit lyrics? Do you have a go-to reaction to that? And Prince thought about it for a moment, and he turned to him and he said, they made me label some of my, what did he call it? I guess intimate lyrical content as explicit. And then I asked them, listen to some of the music today that's actually pornographic. And then tell me that my lyrics should be listed as explicit. So music today, great beat that it might have, wonderful dancing at the club, whatever it might be, but what is it telling you? What is it telling you? How is it reaffirming the opinion of your ego about your own self and your own self-worth? Very careful. The mind is so impressionable, right? So impressionable. Some of you may have heard me share this story. I'm sure Savannah has. I'm sure that you have also, Noel. That back in the day, there was this song that came out on the radio. It was kind of a countryish song. It was about, this guy who cheated on this girl and how, she took her keys and scratched the side of the car. And I said I was going to remember her name, and I still don't. Thank you. Carrie Underwood. And what's the name of the song?
Oh.
He cheated or something?
I don't remember.
It's called Before He Cheats.
Before He Cheats, yeah, Before He Cheats. And so the first time that I heard that song, I just turned it off because I don't know, it's not my kind of music and whatever. So I just turned it off. But it has a catchy little beat to it, doesn't it? So I'm driving down the road, distracted by my driving one day, and it comes on the radio, and so I just kind of leave it on. And it's just in the background. Just in the background. I'm not even consciously listening to it. But my mind is listening, isn't it? Because it's the first thing it picks up on is that beat. The beat. And of course they play it 10,000 times every hour, So then all of a sudden, it's like playing on the radio and I'm not changing the channel. It's on there and the beat is really inviting and all of that. And then suddenly I know the words, And suddenly I find myself driving home from work, walking in, having an attitude with my husband for something he never even did because that song put me in such a mood. Have you ever had something like that happen to you? Right? Do you know that that's brainwashing you? As soon as I walked in the house and felt anger toward him for something that he didn't even do, I said, I'm never listening to that song again because I know what it's doing to me. I don't even listen to the radio very often anymore because you can't control what's going to come across your radio. Anything can come across the radio at any point in time. And if you're busy, you'll leave it there. So listen to the radio less and choose what you listen to more often. Put on Krishna Das. Put on Om. Put on something that's light. Something that's uplifting, instrumental, or something that has a message that you really want to embody. And this way, you're training your own mind. This is what, how people will often say in today's world, I want to take my power back. And they think that just because they said it happened. Have fun with that, right? What is taking your power back is I'm going to retrain my mind to behave the way that I want it to behave. Never mind what those consumer moguls, etc., and so on want it to do. No. I'm not going to go out and pay money for that album that is just I wouldn't watch that on television. I am not going to listen to it on a record. Good for them for being artists and expressing themselves, whatever. They have every right to do that. Absolutely. I have a right not to listen to it. Right? Because some people might say, well, don't you think that that's kind of closed-minded that, you're saying that these things are hurtful and we should just turn them off? And I'm saying, no. What I'm saying is you have a choice. And maybe you haven't thought about that. Maybe you haven't thought about what listening to that song over and over and over again actually does to you. The kind of behavior that it propels you into. Because each and every person in this room and in this country and in this world has latent tendencies toward self-hate, self-violence, toward violence, period. And if you listen to a song that's telling you to hate, to be mad, to scratch somebody's car with keys, pretty soon it doesn't seem like that big of a deal. It's called desensitization. And psychologists everywhere know what that means. Right? It can be used as a tool to support. It can also be used as a tool to brainwash. So which one do you want to be? Supported or brainwashed? That's what you have to consider with the mind. Where is my mind at right now? What is it listening to? What is the influence that's coming into it? And what you'll find is that when you start training the mind, the moment you start training the mind, two things are going to happen. Number one, your ego is going to retaliate. It's going to say, but you want the pizza, but you want the alcohol, but you want this, but you want the music. But it's just one time you're going to listen to it. It's just once. You're not listening to it for the lyrics. She doesn't know what she's talking about. You're listening to it because the music is really good. That's great. Then get a karaoke version that doesn't have the lyrics and just listen to the music. Put your own lyrics in there. Right? It's possible, isn't it? It is. Yeah, totally. So your ego is going to retaliate. That's the first thing that's going to happen. And it will happen, boom, like that. The second thing that's going to happen is all of a sudden, your perception of your body is going to change. Of your physicality is going to change. When your mentality is not being so pulled outside of yourself by distraction within the human-made world. It has no other place to go but inside. And then it goes inside and it starts recognizing, oh, you know what? I really am tired. Oh, I really am sore. My knees really do hurt. My back really does hurt. You start to notice more. And then two things will happen. Well, two things might happen. One of two things will happen. Well, I guess they could kind of go side by side. There'll be a little tug of war that'll happen. The first thing is that if the ego is not successful in pulling you out of this newfound, I really mean I want to take my power back and I'm going to retrain my mind to function the way that I want it to function. If it didn't succeed in derailing that, then what it's going to say to you is, you see, all of this stuff that you are now aware of, it's hurting you. It's making you sad. It's not making you happy. It's not giving you what it is that you want. I can give you what you want. Just turn on the radio. Go ahead. A little more numbness, a little more non-awareness. And then the heart is saying, do you see everything that you are experiencing about your own body now? Now you need to cultivate compassion for yourself. Now you need to cultivate compassion, not distraction. You need to sit with what it is that you are feeling and cultivate deep inner compassion, because that is what is going to lead you to the peace that you are seeking, not the distraction. That's a tug of war. And it's a tug of war that doesn't stop for maybe 10,000 lifetimes, for a long time. It just keeps going on. And then one day we feel really good about it. And we're like, oh, I got this under control. And don't say that to yourself. Because that's a quicksand pit if ever there was one. Because the moment that you say to yourself, oh, I got this is going good, I got it under control, the ego's like, oh yeah, so if you have it under such control, then go on back and turn on the radio. Go look at the signs, go whatever it is. Go watch CSI or whatever, because you've got it under control now, so you don't need the boundaries anymore. Makes you start to think, wants you to start thinking that you are somehow, what's the word? You cannot be bothered by these things anymore.
Impervious.
What is
Impervious?
Thank you, impervious. Oh, sometimes the words don't come. So impervious now to these influences. Therefore, you don't have to do without them anymore. And if we and this is everybody. This is so universal as to be really universal, We believe at some point that we've got a hold of it. So we can go back. Isn't that the crux of alcoholism? Drug addiction? Somebody goes into a cleanse, they go off to a rehab center. They start to retrain themselves. And at some point, the ego tries to say to them, well, you've got it all under control. You can go hang out at the bar with your friends. And what happens there? Now, that's a real iffy area to be in, right? So consider yourself on that level if you start doing this kind of work, that you need to stay out of the bar. You need to stay out of the bar. And instead of going there, go to the beach or go to the forest. Go someplace that's good for the soul, where you don't have to worry about those distractions. At some point in time, you may cultivate the strength to be able to walk into the bar and not be, drawn in or lured or even feel like maybe, there's a little trepidation and fear there. That trepidation and fear might be absent at some point, but not right away. Not right away at all. Is this all making sense? Yeah. So the body-mind connection is a little bit more than what they say it is, isn't it? It's just, there's a lot there. There's a lot of undertones and a lot of sublayers and undercurrents and all these other things. A lot of influences going on that we are generally just not aware of because we're so busy being distracted with everything else. So what does that have to do with spirit? Well, if you're so distracted with everything outside of yourself and you're allowing all those things outside of yourself to influence the opinions that you carry about yourself, and most of those opinions lead you to think anything at all negative about yourself, then spirit is not there. Spirit is not actively participating in that because spirit has nothing to do with your opinions. It has nothing to do with that. It's like if you have two people in front of you, one person is kind, considerate, gentle, has faith and love, and one person is cruel and harmful and has no faith and love. And you spend all your time talking to that person. Are you talking to the other person? Are you hearing what they have to say? No. So the more that you allow yourself to be engulfed by your opinions about yourself, you're not talking to spirit. And this doesn't just have to be like the downtrodden opinions of yourself, like I'm not good enough, I'm not this. It's also the other ones. I'm great. I'm wonderful. I'm awakened. It's every opinion about yourself. As long as you carry any kind of an egotistical opinion about yourself, low, high, or somewhere in between, you're not talking to your spirit. The moment that you're talking to your spirit is the moment where you're simply listening. Listening in stillness, listening in silence, listening. And appreciating the struggle that exists between the body and the mind, the struggle that exists between you and the call from the inner self and the pull, the tug of the outside world. That you have an appreciation for that suffering. for what it entails. But you know on some level that you are not that. That is not who you are. The beautiful Shiva mantra, I am not this body, I am not this mind. I am not these 5 pranas. I am not the gunas. I am none of these things. What am I? I am Shiva. I am bliss absolute. These things happen around me? Certainly they do. Of course they do. You can't stop the human-made world from making and unmaking itself every single moment of every single day. You can't stop that. But that's outside of you. It's not who you are. Who you are is how you decide to treat yourself, how you decide to know yourself. Once you let go of all of the opinions that have been pushed on you by the outside world and cultivated within your own mind because of those influences, once you let go of that, then you start to cultivate relationship with spirit. So this whole idea of body, mind, spirit complex, get these 3 things aligned, is a lot harder than what consumerism would have us believe. They think you can do it if you go buy a crystal. Hey, go get a crystal and the proper oil that goes with the crystal and you'll be fine. And it's like, I don't know. Go chant a mantra. Then you'll be fine after you've chanted it 250,000 times, maybe. So spirit doesn't come forward, with the rebellion of the ego or the insistence of the ego. Spirit doesn't come forward and say, I'm going to show you all who I am. That's opinion. That's ego. Spirit doesn't come forward and lift one up while it puts someone else down. That's not spirit. Spirit is stillness. Spirit doesn't come forward and approve of violence. Say, no, well, violence is okay in certain instances, isn't it? No. Violence is to the spirit antithetical to peace. It's antithetical to peace. It's the opposite of peace. What is peace? Stillness. Now, what is stillness? Just sit here like this and never move. So there's this beautiful story. There's some say it was a monk traveling through the forest. Some say that it was just a person. But either way. So this individual is traversing a forest. He comes upon a meadow and he sits down to take a rest because he had been walking for a very long time. And so he sits and he just comes into his posture of meditation, puts his hands on his knees and closes his eyes. And he's sitting there for a little while. And when he opened an eye, what he saw was that a community of ants had started building their anthill around him. So he was like, initially, I must have been there for a little while because they were busy building. And he thought, well, if I move, I'll damage what they've done. And I'll probably hurt some of them. So best I don't do that. I'll just stay. So eventually, some time passes, maybe 100 years. Some other person comes walking by and kicks the anthill. And the anthill gets kicked, it breaks apart, and there's a person there. And he opens his eyes, and the man says to him, "What on earth are you doing there? You could have just shooken him off. You could have just pushed him out of your way. You could have just taken control of the situation." And the man looked at him and he said, "There is no control over situations. There is only the presence or the absence of compassion. Period. And where there is an absence of compassion, there is only the presence of violence. I will forever choose compassion." Wow. Now, in your own time for assessment, in your own life, I love that face, Noelle. In your own life, what do you need to understand, to see more clearly in order to cultivate a greater compassion in comparison to the violence that's present? A greater stillness. The ability, so stillness is not sitting still. It is the ability to withstand the insult of the outside world in favor of your own inner experience of compassion. Right? So in that regard, what do you have to let go of in order to do that? Your opinions first. Right? So the next time that you want to say something about somebody, something harmful, hurtful, don't. The next time that you want to say something harmful or hurtful about yourself, don't. The next time that you want to kick the anthill, don't. Don't. That's the first step. Just don't. And then just notice, if you have the wherewithal in your mind, notice when you make actively the choice to not kick the anthill, how are you left feeling? Are you carrying the guilt that you kicked the anthill, or are you carrying something else with you? Could be a little bit of a sense of pride because you actually made the choice, and that's fine. Just don't play into it, right? Just see clearly for your own self that you are capable of that. You are capable of kicking the anthill, and you are capable of not kicking it. And let that be proof to you of your own inner power. Proof to you that you're capable of stillness and that you are capable of this higher level body, mind, spirit connection. But in order to get that connection with your inner spirit, you have to know your mind. And you have to know what your mind does to contort your perception of your body. And then you have to start to retrain yourself to behave more compassionately towards yourself and therefore to all others. Otherwise, spirit is going to just be a concept, another marketing tool. Buy the crystal, get the essential oil, wear the t-shirt. What would the t-shirt say? No.
Mine says peace.
Does it say peace? Yeah. It's a great affirmation, peace, But whatever t-shirt it is that you have in your collection that has something like that on it, look at it and say, this is more than a t-shirt. What do I have to do to actually embody this? Because just wearing the word ain't doing it. It's just not, Body, mind, spirit, complex. Because it's complex. Because there's so many different layers to it. And why do we start with the body first? Why does the body come first in that triplet? The body comes first because it's the grossest way that we understand ourselves. And by gross, I mean most obvious. It's right here, You can see it, you can feel it. It has to do with the six senses. It's the way we understand ourselves in the world and how we move through the world. It's our greatest source of information. Information that is easily skewed once it gets to the mind. So we need to look at the body a little bit differently even. And as Shiva states in that beautiful, beautiful stotram, he says, I am not this body. Well, if I am not this body, then what is this body? Well, this body is a vehicle. This body is a community of little intelligences called cells. And do you know, each one of those cells, so smart. I think Jyoti might have been talking about that a little bit yesterday, right? Each one of those cells has its own consciousness, knows exactly what it's needing to do, what it's needing to heal, knows exactly what's needed. But do we ever stop to think about that? That this body is actually a community of consciousness that has come together in order to carry my spirit, which is not physical, from place to place to place, so that it can have an experience of this life. So sometimes I like to say to students who ask questions about that, look, it's really easy to understand from kind of a world perception. We have a community, and we have a leader of that community. And that leader is either a compassionate leader or a tyrant. Compassionate leader does what? Make sure that people have the basics of what they need, you know? Leads by good example, right? Is there when they're needed. Is approachable, available, is honest, is trustworthy. Now, what is a tyrant? A tyrant exploits. A tyrant lies. A tyrant power grabs, right? So now you get to ask yourself, of the millions upon millions of little cellular consciousnesses that make up your body as the community, what kind of leader are you? Oh, changes things, doesn't it? It puts all the power in your hands. What kind of leader are you? How do you lead this community that you are in charge of? With compassion or something else? So the body is first because the body is the primary source of information through the senses, and the body is also the primary sufferer. Whether it's necessary suffering or unnecessary suffering, we feel it through the body first, usually. And then the body sends its signals up to the brain, and somewhere along the way, it merges into the mind, and the mind does stuff with it, right? So then the mind starts to categorize and say, this is good, this is bad, you want this, you don't want that. Categorizes it, puts it into nice little groupings so that it can pull from that information at a later point in time if it wants to. And again, it's not just what's happening to the physical body where that information is coming to. It's everything that is seen, everything that is heard, everything that is smelt, everything that is tasted, and everything that is felt. All those things are informing your mind. So mind comes second because mind is less subtle than the body, but more gross than spirit. You're very much aware of your mind, are you not? Absolutely. But you can't see it, right? So it's less gross than the body, which you can obviously see and feel. Spirit is so subtle, you don't even know where it is. And we're so busy feeling the outside world, all the feels for the outside world, you know, and all the feels for what we think we know about ourselves, that we probably wouldn't know spirit if it stood right here in front of us. Or if it was on the essence of our breath. Or in the essence of our heart. Somebody tell me, the last time that you felt that you were connected to spirit, what were you doing? That you felt like some kind of a connection, a deeper connection that you could only really identify as spirit because you didn't have another name to put to it. What were you doing? Yeah?
Standing on the earth barefoot.
Standing on earth barefoot.
In nature.
What was that?
In nature.
In nature. Anybody else? Chanting. Anybody?
At the beach. At the ocean.
Yeah. So you were in these circumstances and conditions that were, there may have been some amount of distraction there, but the distraction was less. And because the distraction was less, you were able to be more present to what you were feeling, to what your physical body was experiencing, to what the mind could potentially experience. The gratitude, the appreciation, the joy, you know. That it opened a window, literally, to your soul, so that you could have a glimpse of that as well. Now, go to the beach on a cloudy day. Go to the forest, you know, in the midst of a storm. Chant a mantra that you don't know the words to. Yeah. And all the little irritations that go along with that, don't see them as irritations. See them as little windows opening so that you can view your soul, feel your soul, know your soul. See all of it as the opportunity to come closer to the self. And when you do that, you will. You will. You will have that feeling more and more often. It's a feeling of something gracious, something silent, but not without sound. It's silent, but not without sound. It's still, but not without movement. Does that make sense? It's present, but it's also absent. Right? Yeah. It's a dichotomy, truly. So the more that you cultivate the mind, retrain it to function the way that you wish for it to function in favor of you knowing yourself, the more that you care compassionately for this physicality that carries you everywhere you go, supports you in everything. You have never asked your body for a single thing that it has not tried to its very best to fulfill. Has tried so hard that it has even harmed itself. You know? And yet how often do you say thank you? Thank you for carrying me everywhere. Thank you for all of the things that you have attempted to do that were unreasonably asked of you. Thank you for tolerating my ego and all that it has asked. You would be surprised at how your body will, as soon as you say thank you, your body will soften. It will come to a place of, connection. But when we spend our life saying, no, do more, do more, do more, faster, more intense, more difficult, then the body just continues to clench, to constrict. And then disease sets in and all these other things, and then the mind constricts at the same time also, because the mind gets frustrated, because the dictator is present, not the compassionate leader. So whenever you're feeling that tightness right up here, just know that that's the tyrant trying to come out. And then just untwist that a little bit, sit down, chant a lot, meditate, have a little bit of physical stillness so that you can have the experience of the inner stillness. So does that all make sense? Body-mind connection, body-mind-spirit complex. What are the obstacles and how do we resolve them? And the benefit, of course, there's really one benefit. There's tons of benefits, but there's really one ultimate benefit. And the ultimate benefit of understanding more profoundly the essence of that body-mind-spirit complex is knowing yourself. And knowing that your soul is genuinely peaceful, joyful, content. It's not the miserable, temperamental, angry, resistant, whatever word you put there, version of yourself that you think you are. No. Those are all just little roles that you play along the way. I'm going to be resistant today, I'm going to be sexy today. I'm going to be this today. Yeah. And spirit's just chilling. Spirit's like, I'm just peaceful. Right? I know. It's like the world's greatest play, isn't it? Somebody should totally... Oh, that's right, they have. There's there's lots of great movies that you can watch. So there's a movie called The Fountainhead. The Fountain or The Fountainhead? Oh, it's a beautiful movie. Truly, truly is a beautiful movie. And it is... Do you know that one, Michelle? Did we watch that together?
I don't think so, but I think you've mentioned it, The Fountain.
Yeah, I think it's The Fountain. So it's a very golden colored kind of movie. Like there's a lot of golds and bronzes in there and whatnot. And it's about this person who's... somebody look it up real quick. It's called The Fountain. Who has their phone on them? Good job, everybody, with your phones put away. Yay! That's about it. So it's either the fountain or the fountainhead.
Does somebody die?
I think his wife, right? His wife, and he's trying to connect with her somehow or another.
I do vaguely remember.
And there's this beautiful tree, right, that grows like through the middle of time. It's just the most stunning.
Very magical.
Yeah, it really is a magical movie.
Is it old?
I don't think it's too old. I think it's like 90s or something.
Oh.
Yeah. Did you find it,
It
Savannah?
says 1943 novel, The Fountainhead.
No, not that one. That's Ayn Rand. Yeah, this is different than that. Yeah, so it must be The Fountain. Yeah. Yeah.
2006.
Yeah.
Oh.
With Hugh Jackman.
Yes! With Hugh Jackman.
Oh.
Yeah. There you go. Okay, now I know you're all going to watch it, right? Yeah. With Hugh Jackman, that's the one. So that's a phenomenal movie to watch. It really gets you thinking about the human condition and the way that we're driven, you know. And so if you have to fill your time, like if you are a movie watcher or whatever, you know, you have some things that you would like to start to replace now that you've kind of had this conversation, then movies like that, movies that inform you about the human condition truly, that expose things, not the way that like CSI does, you know, or The Walking Dead or something, but by the way that causes you to ask deeper questions, right? So there's that one, and then there's, what is the one about, it's a purgatory-based movie. It's the dentist who, and we had the YTT watch it all the time, not Peaceful Warrior, but that's another one, Peaceful Warrior. Is another really good movie to watch. It's an older movie, a little bit on the campy side, but it's awesome. And then the other one is about a dentist who passes away, and he finds himself in purgatory.
Heaven Can Wait?
Yes.
No, not Heaven Can Wait. That's a good one.
Heaven Can Wait, but it's something like that. It's with the comedian.
Robin Williams?
Oh no, that's a good one too, though.
Ricky Gervais. Ricky Gervais.
With who?
Ricky Gervais is the guy.
Maybe. Was he older, like 50s-ish?
50s,
sort of.
And he had his partner was the Indian doctor.
Oh.
And he beats Taya Leone, and that's how it all plays out. But I think Taya Leone's husband is killed by a bus. Is that?
Oh, I'm not sure now.
But it's
that sounds really good, though, doesn't it?
Exactly. I can't think of the name of the movie, but it is where he doesn't believe in heaven. Like he doesn't believe there's any place to go.
But as he's traveling through purgatory, he keeps encountering human suffering, and he finally makes his way, and he's taken through the gates. And so, but heaven is not like heaven in the pearly gates. It's a bunch of people talking about their last embodiment and the next one to come, existing in a state of peace. I
don't think that's the movie.
Oh.
This movie I'm talking about with Gervais is similar to that.
Yeah.
He realizes, I like to say it's a little campy, but he realizes that, life is worth living, and it's different for everybody. Like it's a really good movie. I can't think of the name of it.
Well, that sounds like a really good one too. So look up that actor for sure. And this one is not so. I think it's like dubbed from French or something like that. And I know. Next time that you're all in, if I remember it, because I've watched it like 10,000 times. It's such a good movie, and it's a little bit dark in some areas because it doesn't shy away from this concept of purgatory. But what is purgatory actually? Is the question that it raises. Like, what is purgatory? Is it some place where you're sent to because of the bad deeds that you did in this life, and you got to suffer a certain amount in order to make up for that? Or is it a condition wherein the human ego is still so very unhealthy that it cannot accept the reality of the truth of the self? And it's not until there's a moment where that being becomes sick and tired of its own suffering that it surrenders to the truth of the self. And then It's kind of weird. This group comes out and retrieves them and brings them into heaven, where they sit with all of these people in these beautiful flowing white and gold gowns. And they're talking about how, oh, I was your mother last time, and how about if I'm your sister this time around? I was your friend last time. How about we not be friends this time? See what happens. And it's so funny because at the very end, I don't want to give away the end, so I'm not going to say it. At any rate, so those kinds of movies that are do not hide the truth of human suffering, but illustrate it for the purpose of you asking deeper questions, and then inspire you to laugh at the condition of our own humanness, but also inspire you to move beyond that condition. Yeah. Any questions or reflections? Let me do a time check. Oh, I'm getting better. Usually it'd be like 15 minutes late. But yeah, so any reflections or questions for today? No? Yeah?
So I'm curious, for those of us who are wanting to, really, who are conscious about how we spend our time and who we spend our time, like the energy that we take in and what's, but then we're in relationship with others who aren't on that path, let's say, coworkers or family members or friends. Curious what wisdom you would have for that, because sometimes I find myself in that, like, oh, when I'm by myself, I'm really good at being conscious of those things.
Yeah.
But when I'm in relationship with others that aren't necessarily as conscious, I can feel myself getting pulled out of it.
Yeah. Never see them as the problem. Right. So I love Taylor Swift's new song, Hi, It's Me, I'm the problem. So never see them as the problem. Just understand that each and every single human being, each and every being is on a path, a particular path that has a particular trajectory, that they have certain work they have to do. And it may entail them being a certain way sometimes, And so that has, what they're doing has nothing to do with you. Always see that you either have the ability to maintain peaceful compassion within yourself or you don't. They are not the obstacle. Your faith in your own ability to maintain peaceful compassion within yourself is the obstacle. Or it's the empowerment. So the first thing to do there is to acknowledge that and accept it truly, and then not to keep testing yourself, because that's just silly, and that's frustrating too. Not to keep testing yourself, but to truly do the work of acceptance. Do the work of acceptance that, what is it that you have to let go of? What pre-calculated ideas do you have? What opinions do you have? What expectations do you have to let go of in order to be able to stand in a room with a group of people whose opinions and attitudes differ entirely from your own, and still be able to be peacefully true to your own opinions and attitudes and not condemn them for theirs as if they had no light whatsoever. As if the being had no light whatsoever. Their ideas and opinions may not, but they as a being certainly do, And so how do you do that? And that's what you need to cultivate within yourself, is that ability. And how? Read Bhagavad Gita. Read the Devi Mahatmya. Read and all the scriptures, whatever ones you can get your hands on. Now, but understand that, there's a difference between the root scripture and the human commentary, right? And so when you come across anything that suggests that you should commit violence toward another because they don't see God the same way that you do, just know that that's horse rubbish and throw it away. Yeah. And always look for the compassionate message there. Where is the compassionate message? Where is the message that truly unifies? The way that we're going to reconcile the damage in the world these days is not by taking sides in a way that sees no value in the other. It is to find the common ground that we can build upon. And what that necessitates is that we stop identifying the very worst in one another as the first identification, and that instead we start to look and say, well, what is it that we all want? We all want a sense of feeling safe. We all want a sense of feeling that we have the capacity to have what we need to have. And you can't change the other person's way of going about that. You need to know that and just accept it and leave them alone. Leave them alone. Just leave them alone. Don't play a part for them. Don't play a role for them. Don't change yourself for them. Be who you are, because maybe, you don't know, maybe your ability, cultivating within yourself, your ability to be true to your peaceful inner self will encourage and inspire them to cultivate the same thing, because you don't know if they're playing a role. If they're just trying to appear a certain way to go along with the crowd, you don't know. And you never will, probably. So don't worry so much about them. Leave them alone. Yeah. Long-winded answer, I know.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. Ian, what did you want to say?
I just comment about the music. So my journey's been very closely connected to music since I recognized it, And before that, I listened to heavy metal and rock and stuff. Went to a lot of heavy metal shows. So I was exposed to a lot of the negative energy or sound. But I found, luckily, myself, and I still listen to the ones that are positive.
Mm-hmm.
But now mainly I listen to mantra music the majority of the time.
Yeah.
But when I'm at work, other people play the radio, so people pick different music. And the one day somebody started playing rap, new rap that I'm not aware of. And it was very pornographic and violent and all that type of stuff, and just didn't sound good to me. And it actually started making me nauseous.
Mm-hmm.
So instead of normally what I would do in the past would be make a fuss about it and be let's change the music to something better or whatever. I just got earplugs and plugged my ears up till they stopped playing music, and it was better for everybody. But it's tough to not react when you have a physical and that was another thing with that was the first time I experienced that, from hearing something musically I didn't like, the physical nausea.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And that's just a really great example of personal, radical self-responsibility, right? Is that, so they're choosing to do something. I do not wish to take part in that. I'm not going to tell them to stop. Instead, I'm going to take the responsibility for myself, put in the earplugs, and leave them alone. And at some point in time, maybe they'll, and just for example, because some might think, well, they'll never change. Well, when my son was 15, video games. Okay, I kid you not. That's his obsession. And I would sit there when he was 15, 16, 17, and I would worry, he's never going to outgrow this. How is he going to exist in a world where, if he's in front of this thing all the time? He grew out of it. He plays every once in a blue moon now. He still has a gaming system, but it's not like his go-to, So people do change their tendencies. But we can't force that to happen. Even as a mom, I couldn't force my kid to stop, you know? So there's a truth in that. So then what do? You have to take on your own, you know, personal responsibility. And so then as a mom, what did I do? I got him out of the house as much as I possibly could, you know, reasonably with my schedule and his and everything else. And just, we did other things. And, you know, so we do what we can is what I'm trying to say. And that was a really great resolve for that. Absolutely. Yeah, wonderful. All right, let's sit tall, close the eyes. Draw the hands together in front of the heart. Set a resolve to empower a greater mind-body-spirit connection by cultivating awareness with compassion of the physical body, understanding of the function of the mind, and the willingness to change what needs to be changed so that you can come into a deeper, more profound awareness of yourself. Lifting our voices in one Om and the All Beings mantra. Take a breath in. Loka samasta sukhino bhavantu. Loka samasta sukhino bhavantu. Loka samasta sukhino bhavantu. Om shanti shanti shanti. Hari Om Shri Guru Bhyo Namaha. Hari Om. Now and always honoring your light and the light of all beings everywhere. Om, peace, peace, peace. Thank you all so much for being here today. So wonderful to see each and every one of you, to sit and to have this conversation together. I truly appreciate you all. Have a great day. If you're going to stop down and have some brunch, please give them some love in the kitchen. They're all working so hard to feed your belly and make your belly happy. And we are going to have another tree planting. I believe it's next Friday. So if you were not able to, or you did and you want to come back and volunteer for some hours next Friday, there'll be all seedlings that we'll be doing. So please keep a lookout for that email coming from Casey, probably later today or tomorrow. Great. Thanks so much. Be well. Thank you.
Yeah.